Possibly the main factor affecting how useful your feedback is the mood of the learner. So there are a number of things that you can do to make the student receptive to that feedback. We talked already about making the feedback as clear and simple as possible. We've also talked about modelling it so that it's explicit in a concrete way rather than an abstract way. But now I want to think a little more about how we simplify routines. I'm going to look at because, but, so, because these three words are applicable to so many subjects in the curriculum. So here is the simple version, which comes from the writing revolution. You start out by saying, let's say we're studying King Henry VIII, and you start with the same sentence stem. King Henry VIII had 6 wives because, and then the student has to finish that, because he was trying to get a male heir. Then you go back to the stem. Henry VIII had 6 wives, but 2 of them were beheaded by him, or on his orders. Okay, now I'm testing my students' understanding. And instead of doing that just with Henry VIII, I can do this process with any single bit of knowledge that I'm teaching when I want to see how well the students understand it rather than just remember facts. My third step is the so. Henry VIII had 6 wives, so we can guess that he probably didn't love any of them. Now, in your feedback, you're looking for whether the students are putting into their explanations stuff that you taught, or if it's not stuff that you taught, stuff that is logical and correct or reveals a misconception. So the first stage, because, but, so, with the same sentence stem. Let's now dive into the screen and I'll show you how you can make that more complex. Now, this might not be appropriate to your learners, but the principle is. So whenever you find out the fundamental principles of your subject, look for ways to make them more complex with the use here of because, but, so. A more advanced step is to use the words because, but, and so as the first word of each sentence, and the next step is to connect those sentences. So, because it was raining, I took an umbrella. But my umbrella was broken by a strong gust of wind. So I got soaked and had to buy a new umbrella. That, of course, is a totally generic one, but you would apply that to a test of understanding in your subject. I've tried this with a head of science in a secondary school, and it even works to get top grades in longer mark science answers. And in my guides to literature exams, I've even proved that you can do it to get grade 9 in your literature essays. So here is an example of a grade 9 paragraph on Macbeth, just to prove to you that it's so versatile that it can go from quite basic to really complex. And the advantage of this is that it's a routine students can use all the time. And because it's a routine, it's really easy for you to assess what the students do and don't understand. And it might even be that you realise, oh, they're not using the so part, they can't reach conclusions. Or it might be that they can't think of alternative possibilities. So it's not just a really good diagnostic tool for working out what the students can't do, it's also a really easy way to keep building skill. Across multiple departments, you could have this as something that you return to in lots of different subjects and the students build up a massive routine. Now the same is true of other vocabulary, and I'm focusing just on these 5 connectives: because, although, however, therefore, and consequently. Now for some of your learners this will be appropriate. So I'm not going to read through this example, it's another really good one, but you can start off like we did with because, but, so, with a really simple sequence. So let's imagine you've been studying the water cycle. You'd say to the student, tell me something about the water cycle. And they might say, water heats up and goes into the clouds. Brilliant, you'd say. Now tell me that again, but use the word because. Because water heats up, it goes into the clouds. Now you might introduce the subject-specific vocabulary. So instead of goes into, we're going to use the word evaporate. It's a word we've been using in class. So, because water heats up, it evaporates into the clouds. Then you might get students to continue this, maybe in a pair. How could we carry that on using the word although? Although the water has evaporated, it starts to collect into the clouds and turn into water again. Now you might introduce the subject-specific vocabulary, condenses. So you get the idea. You're going to use these connectives in order to get the students to talk about any process that you're teaching. And that's why it'll work in any subject, provided, of course, that your students can explain a process. Now, again, you're the experts in your students and the experts in your subjects. It might not be the connectives that you have as a routine. You might have other words. For example, this makes me feel, this makes me think, this makes me wonder. And so you might have that triplet coming up all the time. You learn some information, this makes me feel, this makes me think, this makes me imagine, or this makes me wonder, whatever it is. But when you get into a routine like this, it's really easy to get feedback on what the kids do and don't understand, and also to give feedback. You know, if a student continually can't imagine something, then you're going to have to give them strategies to think about the future, to think about what's coming next, to think about what might be possible. And you will come up with strategies to help them do that. And this is a wonderful way to diagnose what their thinking difficulties might be. Again, this routine of what does it make you feel, what does it make you think, and what does it make you imagine is something that would apply to nearly every subject. And if we step away from the academic, it also improves the student's ability to think and speak and communicate. So all these techniques, because but so, the 5 connectives, and this triplet that I've just given you will work. No doubt you will come up with other things that might work even better. But the trick is to take the time to think, what is a simple thing that I can make a routine that will make it useful for students to use, that will give me feedback on what they can do and what they understand, and then will give me insight into how to move them forward.